You're listening to the Journey Podcast. What ancient wisdom lies within the concept of Sthira Sukham, and how can it lead to a more balanced and fulfilling life? Stay tuned for more. This episode contains strong language and listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Join us for an enlightening exploration of ancient wisdom that offers profound insights into life balance. In this episode, we delve into the concept of the Sthira Sukham, often referred to as the middle way. Our guest offers invaluable insights into how this wisdom can be applied to modern life, providing a roadmap to navigate the complexities of balancing your life and well-being. Discover how the combination of yoga and hypnosis can empower you to cultivate a sense of well-being and fulfillment, offering practical strategies to find your own unique balance. This episode invites us to embrace this ancient wisdom and explores how it can guide us in creating a harmonious life, one that honors our physical, emotional, and spiritual needs while providing the tools to thrive in today's fast-paced world. For nearly 2 decades, Matt Dickson has been helping people transform themselves. A certified hypnotherapist and 500-hour registered yoga teacher, Matt has developed a unique approach to transformational coaching that emphasizes somatic inquiry, metaphor, and elegant trance work. Known for his ability of combining yoga's ethical practice with hypnosis, Matt leads workshops on navigating anxiety, metaphor creation, and setting boundaries. Let's meet Matt Dickson. Hi, Matt. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because the wisdom of the Sthira Sukham is such an interesting space for holistic healing. I'm excited to chat about that. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Petra. Thank you. I'm looking forward to talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you want to share a little bit about yourself and your story and how you came to do what you were doing today?
Yeah. I refer to what I do as subconscious coaching, but the long and short of it is I'm the hypnotist and a yoga teacher. And I help people overcome subconscious blocks and change their habits from doing things they don't like that they do to doing things they want to do.
Yeah, I'm sure we all have a few of those things that we don't want to do to turn into things we do want to do. So that sounds amazing. And certainly the subconscious mind is very powerful. So we can talk about that as well. Now, I'm curious if you can explain what the Sthira Sukham actually is or what it means so that listeners who aren't familiar with that can get a sense of what we'll be talking about.
Yeah. So it translates from Sanskrit to stability and ease. It's a concept in yoga that I learned in yoga anyway. To put it in an example of like a posture, if you're holding a posture with all of your strength and really struggling and tensing and tightening, you'll burn out quickly. And you'll be quite strong, but for a very short time. And if you're doing the bare minimum and just a little bit less to hold the posture, then you don't have integrity, you don't have structural integrity, good alignment, and things like that. And you're actually putting yourself in danger, just as you are if you're holding too tight. And the Sthira Sukham is being stable with ease so that you can hold a certain posture for a long time. And it gives you the middle way and the flexibility to go to the extreme of high tension or very, very low tension. And you can fluctuate between the two, because one thing I really dislike is either or thinking. However, there's extremes for reasons. Sometimes you have to go to one extreme, sometimes you have to go to another extreme, but it's not either or, it's the middle and going to the front or back when you need to.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how we can apply that into our lives because so often we struggle against the flow and we do tend to burn out when we do that for longer periods of time. So, how can we apply this middle way to our lives depending on what we're doing?
Well, when you said struggle with the flow, that made me think of water rafting. And this kind of gets into the concept of surrender. If you're water rafting, no matter how big and strong you are or how determined you are, you're not stronger than the current. You're not stronger than the river. So you may not want to go in the direction of the river, but it's navigate the current to keep from hitting the sides and sinking and drowning until you come out on the other side and then reassess from there. So for me, the middle way is being flexible with, and here's the problem, at least in America, in Western culture, there is so much either or thinking. And in mental health, if a person is really depressed, they just can't get out of bed. And their only other option in their head is like, well, if I can't clean myself up and go out and work my dream job every day, what's the point? Being able to move in a direction that you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm understanding so that if you're kind of going a bit more with that flow, but you are staying flexible, that you're protecting yourself in a sense from all those banging against the sides and expending energy on things that it doesn't need to be expended on so that you can actually focus on the things that you do want to do. So that makes really perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely.
You could also think of it as Goldilocks and Three Bears. This one's just right.
Yeah.
Too hard, too soft, just right.
What happens to us when we actually work with this middle way? Because very often we could understand that as being a bit lazy, like floating down the middle and not actually doing anything. So, how do we interpret this middle way where we can still follow our dreams and we can still progress and not kind of just fall into this? Oh, we're just flowing along. We don't think about anything. We don't care about anything. Where is that middle way for the middle way?
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to when I lost my train of thought was many times people think of like the middle as settling, and it's not. It's halfway to whatever the goal is, or it's the new goal. Like one of my favorite metaphors is a slinky. And if you have a slinky when it's completely compressed, it's just compressed. It doesn't move. It's hard. It's not so useful, I suppose. But if you think, oh, I'm compressed, I want to open up, and you just pull it apart really hard, really fast, you pull it apart too much, it stretches it out and it no longer does the slinky thing. It's essentially ruined. You have to find a use for it. The middle way is in the middle like a slinky, moving from side to side. If you want to progress, you just simply move the sides, you move the middle. And when you pull the slinky apart, the farther you pull it apart, the more skill or technique it takes to keep it going before it wobbles out. But every little bit that you take it apart, you get a little better at that part. You're moving the middle way. And some people, the middle way is slinky, very far apart, and others it's right close to it. Anytime you can stay flexible, anytime you can stay stable and easy, you're ready for anything.
Yeah, you can then move with that flow that might move you a little bit from side to side. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
And how does the subconscious mind figure into all of this? So, when you work with your clients and you use hypnosis, how does the subconscious mind come into finding the middle way on that?
So many things with the subconscious mind. Well, so many things with people, they're presenting issues is almost always either or thinking. If you think of the subconscious mind as almost like a child, because children, before their brains are fully developed, I think by age 5 or 7, they're pretty much all subconscious mind. They're the dreamers. They put a towel around their shoulders and it becomes a cape. When they put the cape on, they become a superhero. And they may intellectually know, maybe they don't, but they may intellectually know that they're not superheroes, but they sure do feel that way and they sure do carry themselves that way. So they become that. But it's the parent, the responsible parent or the responsible guardian that says, hey, yeah, I see you're having a good time there, but in fact, you're not Superman, so you cannot fly, so do not jump off couch. That's the conscious mind. So the conscious mind essentially is like the parent is essentially to put it in a kind of a cynical way, the dream killer. If the kid is like 7 and showing slow development and then says something like, I want to be an astronaut. And then, the parent is encouraging, like, oh, that's awesome. It's good to dream big and this and that. And look at the way these bulldozers are moving all that dirt. Isn't that cool too? And, so they can see other things. But where it's unhealthy is like with that parent, that crappy parent that is like, what are you doing? You're not Superman, dummy. You're going to fall. You're going to hurt yourself. Get off the couch. Like, oh, yeah, right. You're going to be a astronaut. Nobody in this family even went to college. You're going to do whatever else. Sometimes people's conscious minds, they talk to themselves that way. When they start to dream a little bit, they'll shoot themselves down. The subconscious mind will hear that, respond to it, and the subconscious mind only wants to do what the conscious mind wants. It wants to protect the body, the agency of the person, and keep the conscious mind happy. So it'll start to move and behave in a direction that is consistent with the critical voice. If you're having those critical thoughts of yourself and saying things like using depreciating sense of humor, like, oh, I'm not getting in any place with a face like mine, or no, my grades aren't for this, or, that type of thing. If you consciously want to change that, then every time your subconscious mind shows you something different, this is where making friends comes in. Acknowledge it. Talk to your subconscious mind like it's somebody else who's working for you, and then say something like you would say to a kid, good job. That's what we want. That's what we want to do. More of that. Good job. Every single time you become aware of that, to the point where every time you get a good idea, even if that idea is to order a small instead of a large, or to say, I know I always order steak here, but I think I'm going to try the salmon. And salmon was delicious. Thank you, subconscious mind. What a great idea. And that creates momentum. And just like the child, you talk to a child that way, then they're going to develop differently. They're going to develop with greater self-confidence and things like that.
Yeah, I do find that inner critic can be quite harsh. And once we get into the habit of letting ourselves listen to that and letting that influence our behaviors, our thoughts, and how we act in the world, it can be quite devastating in life because there's so many things we don't end up trying. There's so many things we don't end up going after because that little voice keeps us in our corner. It doesn't want us to leave our lane. So I find it fascinating working with the subconscious mind and actually giving that more trust and almost tuning into that intuition a bit more and saying, yeah, I can trust that subconscious mind. I can trust it to bring me new things, to show me new things. And I can open up a little bit and maybe do some new things. I like that. That's fantastic. And do you also use hypnosis then to help people reframe in a sense of what they believe in? So when that thought comes up and they're saying, oh, with my knowledge, I could never do this job, or with what I earn, I could never afford this house or anything like that. Do you help them reframe those thoughts as well?
You asked the best questions. Yes, that is essentially what hypnosis is, in my opinion. It's persuasion and it's reframing. Reframing is changing the meaning of something without changing the facts. I had a client who was convinced that their house was haunted and she couldn't go to sleep. And actually, it was her home. It was an apartment. They were transitioning to another home, had to move into an apartment. They were saying things like the lights would flicker and I would have my cell phone here. And then I wake up, be over here, and all these things like that. So I sort of let her into trance a little bit, like with a story. And when I could see that, like, she had the way, when someone is in trance is when they're just kind of looking at you like, oh, yeah, neat. They're paying attention. It's not a zonked out type of thing. And when she was in this sort of state, I was basically reframing, like, what exactly is it that you're afraid of? Like, what's scary about your phone moving and the lights flickering? Even if it was a ghost, how much harm could it do if all it could do is move your phone and you're a grown human being? And I reframed danger, essentially, or reframed like what she was experiencing as not danger, but something that was interesting and exciting. That's a huge part of hypnosis and changing one's identity,
Yeah.
how they identify with themselves.
Mhm. I mean, here in Europe, that could definitely happen that something's haunted. I appreciate the effort of trying to change the perspective on that. I like that. So I'm very curious what happened with your client and whether she felt better after. Was she able to cope with that situation a little bit better?
She sent me a text the day after and said it was the first time she slept through the night and she no longer noticed those things. I think that she was just nervous about changing neighborhoods, changing homes, all this stuff. And I think, for lack of a better term, her mind was kind of playing tricks on her. Or it was a ghost. And then the ghost understood, like, oh, she's no longer scared. I guess I'll leave her alone. What difference does it make? Right.
Yeah. I mean, the stories that we tell ourselves make up the fabric of our lives. I mean, everything is about how we perceive things, how we experience them, and the kind of stories that emerge from our experiences. So that's a very interesting example about the haunted apartment of changing the story that is happening in our lives. Now, why is it, I would say, almost easier to make these changes in the subconscious mind rather than in the conscious mind? What is the advantage of working in hypnosis with your clients?
The subconscious mind runs everything. The subconscious mind wants to keep us safe. We might be ready to branch out into something, but the subconscious mind wants to keep us safe because change is scary. If you think of, like, one of my favorite metaphors is the conscious mind is a captain, the subconscious mind is a crew, and the ship is the body. And the crew runs the ship, keeps up with the maintenance and everything. And the captain charts the course and makes the decisions. The subconscious mind could say, like, hey, we're overheating here. Can we stop? And then the captain would be like, no, I only go forward. I don't stop. I have a goal, grind, grind, grind. And then many times the ship will break or the body will get sick in order to stop. But it could also be that the crew is saying, hey, we're built to go 40 knots. I don't know anything about ships, so I'm just talking on my butt, but we're built to go 50 knots and we're only going 10. Why don't we go faster? We could go faster. And then the captain's like, oh no, my great grandfather was a captain. He went faster and he hit an iceberg. It's in my family. It's a whole big thing. And getting in rapport with the subconscious mind, that's when the subconscious mind trusts, like, what we really mean. Someone says, I think I'd like to start working out at 6 a.m. I'd like to do that. The subconscious mind isn't going to necessarily believe that because the conscious mind isn't convinced. So you can get up at 6 to work out, but it's willpower. You're willing it to happen. That's the two not being in rapport. When they're in rapport, then a person can say, like, I'm going to get up at 6 and start working out. And maybe that's the thing to do. And maybe it's not, but I'll know 1 or 2 days into it if I want to stay with that or not. Maybe be flexible, like the slinky, be willing to change to 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, whatever. When they're in rapport, it's smooth sailing. When someone comes to me, their subconscious mind and their conscious mind, they're not in rapport. They have one idea and they're acting another way. And it's because they're running an old program of belief that they're not even conscious of.
Mm-hmm. That's, I guess, how you can get in your own way when you're wondering why you don't want to work out or you can't lose weight or you can't seem to make your business grow or make changes in your life and you default to these patterns is because the conscious and the subconscious are just not in rapport. So, and hypnosis can help with that. You can help people bring those two into rapport then through hypnosis.
Yeah. And it could also be that when a person changes drastically and they weren't really ready for the change and they weren't ready for the new things that they're seeing because of the change and the way people are treating them. We can think of two examples, like, well, three really. Many times people who hit like a Powerball jackpot, it'll ruin their lives because they don't know rich. People treat them differently and they see things differently. So it's not comfortable. A person who has gastric bypass surgery And this is getting less common because there's more and more people doing this, but 200 pounds overweight, it's very likely they've been overweight their entire life. And then because they can't really see themselves as a thinner person. So after a gastric bypass, then they drastically lose so much weight and they're no longer, you use a term that people like anymore, they're no longer fat. And then if I'm not a fat person, who am I? People interact with them differently. And many people gain the weight back, and which is difficult to do because their stomach is smaller. One of my favorite examples of this is the actor Edward Norton, he got himself in really incredible shape for a role in a movie where he was muscly, big muscles, and he always played kind of a thin intellectual. The part he plays, now, this was in the 90s. He was asked in an interview, like, why didn't you maintain the physique, the body that you built for that movie, be doing action pictures and things like that? And he said, I didn't like it. I didn't like having big muscles. I didn't like being a person that visually turned heads, I think is what he said. Changing the identity, first you have to kind of change the identity as someone like, I'm a person, rather than saying I'm rich, if you win the Powerball, that can have a connotation of bad things. So reframe rich as an abundant. I'm a person with resources. So a person with resources, if you identify as a person with resources, then, oh, I have resources rather than I'm rich. People are out to get me. I have resources. I'm going to be okay. I don't have to worry about this or that, or I can actually help somebody if they need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really important. It sounds like that there's an inner and outer accord, an agreement in our mind so that we can live authentically. If there's a dissonance, that can also spill over into mental health, physical health. We start feeling unwell or ill at ease, like Edward Norton did, for example. So, really important to have that congruence in what we think and feel and also project onto the outer world. So, that's very, very interesting. Now, if our listeners are curious about the subconscious mind and also pursuing that middle way in their lives, how can they work with you? Do you have programs or services, and how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, my website is really very easy. It's mattdicksonhypnosis.com, MATTDACKSON hypnosis.com. And you can book me there, and we'll do like a discovery call so that I'll know that I'm a good match and determine the path to your transformation. And I am the hypnotic yogi on TikTok and Instagram. It's instagram.com/mdickson28.
Amazing. And do you offer any online courses as well, or just some one-on-one sessions?
It's one-on-one sessions. I do lots of in-person yoga hypnosis workshops where I combine yin yoga with hypnosis. It's almost all for anxiety. That's mostly what I've been dealing with lately. And I do some online group events. Sometimes I have one coming up. This will air, it'll already be done, but in December, I have one online for an online hypnosis session for anxiety.
Amazing. And we will be linking to all of Matt's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there for how you can connect with Matt, where you can find him on the socials and what's upcoming in his event calendar. If you want it to work on anxiety, for example, there seems to be some very great resources there that you can check out. Well, this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope our listeners have enjoyed this journey into the wisdom of the Sthira Sukham as much as I have. I learned so much today again. I always say that in almost every episode, but I never stop learning when I have such interesting podcast guests. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing all this with our listeners.
And thank you for having me, and thank you for asking me awesome questions.
Yeah, amazing. I think this will help people heal, and you work with anxiety also, right? These are big topics that many people are facing nowadays, a lot of stress, anxiety, overwhelm. So these are great tools. Yoga and hypnosis, these are great tools to manage. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care, Matt.
Thank you, Petra. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.